years of Christianity, which was as a monotheistic religion, it was unchallenged. But now we have another religion challenging to be a monotheistic religion that believes in the one God. So Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, started in Mecca and then Medina in Arabia. Arabia was largely pagan, lots of little tribes worshipping all sorts of gods. And he converted those tribes, united the Arabs into a single nation. And then, quite unlike Christianity, they started to invade, because you need to understand that Islam is a very militaristic religion. The idea of jihad or holy war is very central. They see nothing wrong in forcing people to become Muslims, especially if they weren't monotheists, if they were idol worshippers. They gave them the choice: you either convert to Islam or we kill you. So given that choice, most people would convert. Now, to Jews and Christians, because they also believed in the one God, they said, all right, if you don't want to convert to Islam, you needn't, but you're going to become second-class citizens and you're going to have to pay a special tax for not being Muslims. So again, if you were only a very superficial or newly converted Christian, it was only skin deep, that was enough to put most Christians, put them to becoming Muslims. So Arabia was united in 631, Egypt was invaded, and that Egypt was a real Christian centre. So the invasion of Egypt by the Muslim forces in 642 was a severe loss to Christianity. Alexandria had been a real centre of Christian theology. That was lost. Syria and Palestine were invaded in 640, and that meant, the holy places, the Christian holy places, including Jerusalem, were lost. Iraq was conquered in 641, Persia in 650, North Africa 647. Very sudden explosion of this military power. The Roman Empire at that time was divided into East and West. They were more concerned with pushing back the invaders from the north. They hadn't got troops to spare to defend the south, which they'd all seen as safe and wrapped up. And suddenly you got these. And in fact, over the next 80 years or so, Islam spread into Europe, especially Spain in 720, and France itself. They crossed the Pyrenees, and Muslim troops invaded France in the 720s, and France could have fallen. There were quite a number of battles, and the Germanic Emperor Charlemagne, that you may have heard of, Charlemagne was a Christian, one of the newly converted Christian pagans. Still very militaristic in their thinking, so they weren't afraid to fight the Muslims. And the Muslim armies were defeated in France, and so in the Lord's mercy you could say that Islam was stopped at the Pyrenees. It took from then until 1492 to push the Muslims out of Spain. So it took them, 10, 20 years to invade, and sort of something like 800 years to push them out.
Yes.
So that was just the first wave of Islam. That was just the first wave. There were further waves about the year 900 and 1300, and the last wave of Islamic invasion into Christian territory was as late as 1650, where the city of Vienna was besieged by the Ottoman Turks, and could have fallen. So Christianity lost a lot of territory, and they've regained a little bit of it. They've regained the European parts, except for places like Albania, which is still Muslim. So most of Europe over the centuries slowly has been regained. But North Africa, the Middle East has never been regained. So that really stopped the expansion of Christianity southwards into Africa. So really, Christianity never spread further into Africa, and it stopped them spreading eastwards into Asia, because that way was blocked by Muslims as well. So the only way to spread was northwards and then eventually westwards. Now, there was a further catastrophe, really, in the spread of Islam, in that these newly converted northern tribes of Europe still had a sort of big soldier class, and they still wanted to fight. I mean, the Vikings still wanted to fight, even when they realised it was wrong to start, and there was a lot of militaristic energy. And eventually the Christian leaders, especially the Pope and various of the Christian kings, saw, well, the best way to divert this or channel this militaristic energy is to go fight the Muslims. And where best to fight them but the Holy Land? Let's at least get Jerusalem and Palestine back into the Christian fold. And so this is the beginning of the Crusades. Now, the Crusades were, we still use the word crusade, don't we? Sure. We understand exactly what it means, but if you militarize it, it becomes totally catastrophic, because Christianity isn't that sort of religion. Now, Islam might be, but Christianity isn't. Christianity is spread by conviction, by change of heart, change of lives, not by having a sword thrust in your face. And it distorts Christianity. It distorts it. And certainly the Crusades distorted Christianity. And it took a long time for this really to get back to some sort of right thinking. More than that, it convinced the Muslims that they were a better religion than the Christians, because when the Christians tried to fight, they weren't very good fighters. They were the better fighters. So therefore they were the better religion. Because although the Crusades had some minimal success, the Holy Land was brought back into Christian control for about 100 years, from about 1100 to 1200. But it couldn't be held. It was an impossible task militarily to try and, defend that country from Europe when it was surrounded by hostile Muslim forces, who were on the whole as well, if not better, equipped than the Christian armies. And not only that, but it was the crusading armies came from the west, the western part of Christianity, and the eastern part of Christianity, what we call the Eastern Orthodox, which wasn't militaristic in that sense. They were military to the extent of defending their borders, but no more. But eventually one of the Crusades turned on them, so there was actually fighting between the Western Church and Eastern Christianity, which seriously weakened the Eastern Church and made them a prey to the Muslims later on. So that was catastrophic too. So we really have some bad news on that front. And the point, of course, about Islam is that we have another resurgence now. We might think this is a new thing, but it's not actually. It's part of this whole pattern of wave after wave of Muslim invasions that started in 600, and then I said 900, 1300, 1600, and now 2000. It's a different sort of invasion in one way, and yet we see the rise of this ISIL power, and you notice that they want to set up the caliphate. Well, this goes right back to original Islam. This is what the original Muslims wanted to do. set up a holy state that was run entirely on Muslim principles and Muslim law. And all infidels, all unbelievers were banished. Well, that's what they're trying to do. They're just going back to how things were. Of course, we see it as a very medieval notion, and in a sense it is medieval, but it's still an ongoing strand of Islam. We get a lot of leaders saying, well, Islam isn't really like this. Islam is really a peaceful religion. Well, the point is, you can find nice, kind Muslims who are peaceful, and there are passages in the holy book, the Quran, that talk of peace. But there's a load of other passages that talk of war, of forced conversions, people having to convert, and so on. So, you know, I think Western leaders are trying to just fool themselves by, they're obviously appealing to moderate Muslims because they need their help. But to say that these other guys aren't really Muslims is just nonsense. They really are. They really are as Muslim as all the nice, kind, peaceful Muslims. But they're just taking a different version of Islam, but that version has existed from the beginning. And I think we should be under no illusions about that Islam is a very all or nothing religion, but it's also a worldly religion in the sense, unlike Christianity, when we say Christianity became a state religion, we see on the whole that's a distortion of Christianity. That's not how Jesus meant it to be. But for Islam, it is. It is meant to be. They want a Muslim state. They want Islam to be the state religion and Islam to be run on Islamic lines. So what we're seeing as manifestations of Islam is, first of all, it's in a long tradition, and we need to understand that. But it's also as a genuine form of Islam as any other. And we can't sort of